When I was in grade 6, there was something called a white elephant sale. Anybody know what that is? Handful of people. White elephant sale is basically a yard sale inside. It is a place where you can bring your money and you can buy the stuff that nobody else wants. Absolutely incredible. And so this white elephant sale was taking place at my public school, and we didn't have much money, so my mom gave me probably just $1 or $2 to go over to the school to see what I could find. I found myself walking through the gymnasium, and as I walked along through the boxes, as cheap as these things are, the amount of money I had really wasn't going to buy me a whole lot. I don't remember everything that I bought, or I don't even think I bought very many things, but as I looked through the various boxes, looked across the various tables, I recognized that I just didn't have much money, and that I wasn't going to be able to buy anything substantial. My grade 6 teacher, Mr. Williams, was standing at this one table, and he had this plant in front of him. It was a geranium, and he said to me, he said, "Hey, Jeff, you should buy a plant." Now, friends, I want to tell you that in all the years of asking for things for Christmas and for my birthday, I had never, ever, ever desired a plant. This was not something on my top 10 wish list, all right? And I looked at the plant. This is you can't get geraniums apparently at this time of the year, so this is my makeshift geranium. I hope it looks like one. And I looked at the plant, and I thought to myself, I don't really want that. And then Mr. Williams, who was very persuasive, began to talk to me about how it would look great in my bedroom. He'd never been to my bedroom, and yet he thought it would look great there. He began to talk to me about how I could nurture it and how I could bring it life, and he just kept selling it to me. And I started to think to myself, you know what, this might actually be a good idea, because it would show that I'm somewhat responsible. If I bought an Archie comic book, that any kid can buy that, but not very many kids at my age in grade 6 were buying geranium plants. And so the more we talked, I thought, this is a good idea. I'm going to bring this home. And so I carried this geranium plant from Queen Elizabeth Public School to my apartment. And I came in and walked to the door, and I said, "Look, Mom, look what I've got." And I showed her my geranium plant, and she's like, "What's that for?" I said, "Well, Mom, I'm quite responsible now. And so I'm going to have this plant in my house or in my bedroom, and I'm going to take care of this thing." And she just kind of chuckled, and she said, "Oh, that's great." And so I took the plant, and I found a spot in my bedroom. And friends, I cherished this plant. I envisioned growing this plant to something absolutely beautiful, something that would cause people to come over to our house, and they would come by my bedroom, and they would see the red in the corner through my bedroom door, and they would be enamored by the beauty I had brought to it. And so each day I took great care to make sure that I would take a little bit of water and pour it into the plant so that it would grow and be nurtured. And I took great care nurturing it for days. And then I did what most kids at that age would do. I started to ignore it. I thought it really doesn't need to be watered as regularly as I've been doing that. I'm going to just leave it for a day. And then I start to leave it for 2 days, and then 3 days and 4 days. And then I forgot about watering it at all. And friends, as you can imagine, with my green thumb, or lack thereof, I started to watch this beautiful plant that I had a vision for, this beautiful plant begin to die and wilt away as the soil around it became as hard as rock, because I failed to nurture it. And that which once represented life in my room had now dried out because of the lack of nurturing, and now was dead. I've been in ministry for 20 some odd years, almost 25 years. And I've watched many, many people, and I've watched many, many families who have a vision for their home or for vision for their lives, and they desire something incredibly beautiful. They desire something that would enamor people. But what happens along the way is at the beginning there's nurturing that's taking place within the individuals within the household. There's a nurturing, a pouring into it, and there's a certain element that brings health and life, and for a season in these homes and in these families, there seems to be some great growth. But after a period of time, there's some neglect, and we start to forget to do the things that we once did. And what takes place is we begin to see the soil, the emotional soil, the mental soil, the things within the pot that should bring the nutrients. We start to see that dry up. And I have to be honest, I've watched so many people in the church who are going through life dead, whose petals have fallen off, whose leaves have become wilted, whose soil is so hard, just like rock. And the reason is because there's been a lack of nurturing within the household. There's been a lack of nurturing within the home. In fact, there are people here today that you're living in a place where your mom or your dad or your brother or your sister or your kids, they may not have given you the nurturing that you needed. Or maybe they once gave it to you and they decided they would pull back. And you have gone through your life and you've not had the nurturing that you've needed because that which was supposed to be in the family home was pulled away. It was robbed from your life. And there are some in this place right now, and I pray that God brings healing to your souls. There are some people in this place right now. You're like the dead geranium in my bedroom. There was potential for beauty, but because of the lack of nurturing, things have dried up. I want to tell you that God has a vision for your life, and God has a vision for each of your homes, that you would live in a blessed home full of nurturing and full of life. He has a vision of this beautiful plant for your family, this beautiful plant for your household, whether that's your extended family, for those of you who may be single and living by yourself, or those within your small unit, for those who might just have one or two people in the house, or for the extended family, maybe you've got all your kids there. God's got this vision for our families. We would have a blessed home. And I want to show you this in Scripture. I want you to turn your Bibles to Genesis chapter 27. We're going to look at verses 22 to 38. And if you don't have your Bible, you can just turn up on the screen and read along with me. Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He didn't recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau. So he proceeded to bless him. "Are you really my son, Esau?" he asked. "I am," he replied. And then he said, "My son, bring me some of your game to eat, so that I may give you my blessing." Jacob brought it to him, and he ate. And he brought some wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." So he went to him and kissed him. When Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him and said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and people bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mothers bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." And after Isaac had finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food and brought it to his father. And then he said to him, "My father, please sit up and eat some of my game, so that you may give me your blessing." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I'm your son," he answered, "your firstborn Esau." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted the game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came in, and I blessed him. And indeed, he will be blessed." When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." I think that's it, right? Oh, no, one more. But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. Isaac is coming to the end of his life. The Bible tells us at the beginning of chapter 27 that his eyes had grown weak, which was a sign in the Middle East that his health was deteriorating fast. He had come to a place where he knew that he didn't have the energy to continue to lead his family. And at some point soon, God would take him to be with his forefathers and be in heaven with the one he had served. And he needed to pass on the leadership role to somebody in his family. And he knew that in that society that you would pass it on to your oldest child. And so he called for Esau to come and make him a stew so that he could bless him. Now, Esau and Jacob's mom, Rebekah, she knew that Jacob was the one who was supposed to lead. Because when she received word from God that she was pregnant with these two boys, God had given her a word that the younger would serve the older. She knew God's plan, God's intention, that the leader of this family was supposed to be Jacob. And so rather than letting God sort things out, she steps in and she creates this deceptive plan where she dresses Jacob up like Esau, who's a very hairy man. I mean, he must have been super hairy because they're using animal skin to cover his arms. And he comes in to pretend to be Esau. And what we know in this passage is that Isaac ends up blessing Jacob. Jacob receives a blessing on his life, and there are some things that Jacob receives from Isaac that I think every person in this place needs, and that the people within your family are going to need if they are going to truly grow up to be full of life, the full potential of what God has for them. The first thing I think that we need in our lives and that people around us are going to need, people in our family are going to need, is a meaningful touch. A meaningful touch. Genesis chapter 27, verse 26, Isaac says to Jacob, "Please come close and kiss me, my son." Please come close and kiss me, my son. Now, friends, this seems like a strange statement in our North American culture. Maybe for some of you in your culture, this doesn't seem so strange. But I'll tell you this. Never have I said to my boys, for at least for quite a few years, maybe when they were little, but recently I've not said, "Hey, Bailey, come close and give me a kiss." I just haven't, all right? Now, the big 6 foot, X number of pounds, bearded giant he doesn't want to come close and give me a kiss. He'll give me a big hug, but he doesn't want to give me a big kiss. But there's something significant that Jacob is being offered from Isaac. As he embraces him, it is a meaningful touch. As he hugs his dad, it is something of a term of affection. He is receiving something tangible from his dad that says, "Hey, I care for you." In ancient times, when a kiss was given, it meant that the relationship was good. It meant that the two parties cared for each other, that there was deep feeling for one another, that there was a meaningful relationship at hand. If things had become severed and they would embrace and kiss one another, that meant things were good. These two acts, the kiss and the hug, were meaningful touches that spoke of Isaac's dear affection for his son. Friends, I want to tell you that we can go through life. We can go through life at times and believing that the people in our homes and in our families, that they don't need any kind of meaningful touch. I don't know what kind of home you've been brought up in, and I understand that there are some cultural realities, but there are some homes where we are taught that you do not get close, that you do not show physical affection at a certain point. That you might do with little children, but as the children get older, as they turn into teenagers or maybe adults, that you don't give hugs anymore, and you don't place your hand on them, and you don't embrace anymore, that you don't show meaningful contact, because those people should know that you care for them. But I want to tell you that there is something significant that was taking place in Jacob's life because of his dad's embrace and kiss. You see, every meaningful touch provides a tangible expression of what's in our hearts. Friends, I need you to get this. This isn't just for kids. Husbands, your wife needs a meaningful touch. Come on, women. Let's rewind the tape. That's an old term, right? Let's just rewind things for a second. Every woman needs a meaningful touch from their husband. Yeah. And without venturing into bad territory, I'm not talking about something that's going to bring you benefit later on, okay? You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that says to your spouse, "Hey, I care about you." And women, your husband needs it too. They need something that says, "Hey, I care about you." Some meaningful touch, a pat on the arm, or a touch on the arm, an embrace that's initiated, a kiss, something that just says, "Hey, I want to show you something tangible." Every child needs it. Every mom and dad needs it. There is something that Jacob received from Isaac, this meaningful touch that brought blessing to his life. There was a psychologist in 2009 by the name of Matthew Hernstein. He did this experiment where he brought some people into the room, various tests, and he would blindfold one individual, and he would say to the other individual, I want to give you one of 8 emotions, and all you're allowed to do is simply touch the person in a way that conveys one of the 8 emotions that I'm asking you to convey. And so one person would be blindfolded, and the other individual would be told, hey, I want you to show love. And they would come over, and they would just simply touch the person in a way that said, hey, I love you. They say, hey, I want you to show anger. And I don't know if they'd punch them, I don't know. But they just, whatever emotion was asked of them to convey, to communicate, they simply had to do it through touch. The research showed that even though the person was blindfolded, 78% of the time, they got the emotion that was to be communicated accurate. They're not seeing, they're not hearing, but simply by the touch, they are receiving the emotion that the other person is trying to convey to them. And friends, I want you to know that we don't just communicate what's in our heart through our mouth, but we communicate what's in our heart through our touch, through our embrace, through little things that just mean something. Laura Guerrero, a researcher of Arizona University, says that when you are in close proximity, touch is the fastest way to communicate something. Faster than words, faster than eye contact, faster than facial expression. Touch is the fastest way to communicate something. And she goes on to say that when we touch somebody, there is immediate connection with that individual. Just think about this. Somebody comes along and they want to talk to you. They place their hand on your shoulder. You feel connected to them. Somebody comes along and shakes your hand and starts to talk to you. You feel connected. There are times I'm shaking people's hands, and you've probably seen it. I go to shake their hands, and they want to talk to me, and we continue to hold hands. It's not something I do every single week or with everybody, but in that moment, the person's trying to share something with me, and I continue to hold their hands, and it's a moment where I'm trying to say, hey, I'm not just connecting to your words, I'm connecting to you. I want you to know that I care. Touch brings connectivity. When I was a kid, my parents split up when I was 7 years old. And so we lived with my mom. There was a whole custody battle thing took place over the years after they had got divorced. We ended up living with my mom, and my dad would have us one weekend, and my mom would have us the next weekend, back and forth, back and forth. I remember the first summer, once this custody agreement was in place, I was going to be spending 2 weeks with my dad. Now, friends, I want you to know I love my dad. I love him tremendously, but I had never been away from my mom for 2 weeks period of time. I had kind of become accustomed to my dad not being there because he had left when I was 7, and so I would see him less frequently than I'd see my mom, but my mom was always there. And so we went to his place in Willowdale, and we spent, I think it was in Willowdale, maybe, anyways, doesn't matter where it was, but we went to my dad's place, and I was going to spend 2 weeks. And so for the first couple of days, things were okay. But now we were into the latter half of the first week, and I was really missing my mom. I hadn't been away from her, and I was feeling it significantly. I'm about 12 years old. I'm trying to be a man. I'm trying to have brave face on, but in my heart, I'm just like, I'm torn apart. I miss my mom. My dad can see it. And one day he came up to my room, and he started to question me about what he was observing in my demeanor. And I started to talk to him. I said, Dad, it's just that I love Mom. I miss Mom. Dad, I don't want you to think I don't love you or that I don't want to be with you. I haven't been away from Mom this long. I haven't been away from her for a couple weeks, and I'm feeling it, Dad. And he began to talk to me, and he did what I probably would have done. He drew from a story from his past. And he said, you know, when I was young, your grandfather was a carpenter, and he used to travel all over. We lived in Newfoundland, and there were times that he would travel to Toronto, and we wouldn't see him for at least a month's time, and I missed him so much. And he'd say, Jeff, I know so much of what you're feeling. And those were comforting words, and they were meaningful. But as I listened, I appreciate what he said. It didn't seem to do enough. And then my dad did the one thing that he needed to do. He didn't say anything more, but then he grabbed me, and he didn't do this very often, but he grabbed me and he held me in his arms, 12 years old. And I began to sob. And my dad just held me, and he began to tell me how much he loved me and told me it was okay, and that if I really missed my mom so much and it was difficult, he was willing to take me back home early. I didn't need to go back home early. I just needed my dad to hold me. And you may think that, well, Jeff, you're light. You know, you just need to suck it up, so to speak. I'm telling you that every person in this room needs a moment like that from somebody in their life. Friends, I don't care how tough you think you are. There is something significant in the human psyche and in the human soul that we need people in our lives to bring about a meaningful touch. And husbands and wives, some of you, there's such a coldness in the home because there is a lack of meaningful touch on a regular basis. There's a lack of hug. There's a lack of holding hands. There's a lack of placing your hand on the shoulder. There's a lack of kiss. There's a lack of that. And I want to tell you, you want there to be health there. Don't go to a counselor. Don't read a book. You do that. But secondary, just hug her. Just hug him. Just hold the hand when you're walking through the mall. Just show some meaningful touch. And your kids need it too. It doesn't matter how old they are. I'm 47 years old. I still need a hug from my mom and dad. I still need somebody to be in my life just showing a meaningful touch that says, I care about you. I'm connecting with you. I want to bless you through my touch. Friends, I want to tell you that if our homes are to be healthy, there's got to be a meaningful touch, something that speaks to what's in our hearts, something that speaks to what's in our lives, something that is tangible. And it doesn't matter how you've been raised, and I don't care, well, my dad didn't do it for me, or my mom didn't do it for me. It doesn't matter what has been done for you or what hasn't been done for you. I'm telling you that if you want to nurture the plant, if you want to nurture the life, you've got to pour in the meaningful touch. The meaningful touch. The second thing that I think that Jacob receives from his dad, from Isaac, is words of life. Words of life. If you look at the blessing he gets, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of heaven's dew and of earth's riches, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. I think he offers words of life that say, may you have God's favor on you. Son, may you have God's favor wherever you go. And then he says, may you live in abundance. Son, I don't want you just to get by. I don't want you just to scrape by. I want you to live in abundance, son. I want God's favor to be upon you. I want you to live a life that's full of abundance. Son, I want you to become a leader. May you become a leader. People will bow down to you. People will serve you. I want you to be a man who is a leader amongst people. And I want you to find favor with other people. I don't want you just to find favor with God. I want you to find favor with people. You see, here's a man who's acting in deception. Here's Jacob who's pretending to be Esau, living in total deception, and yet he receives these words of life. And do you want to know why? You want to know why this happens in this moment? Is I think that Isaac has to speak into Jacob's potential, not his current reality. Friends, this is so important. The deceiver is standing in front of his dad. Here's this man who's tricked his brother, who's now trying to steal the blessing, and he's standing in front of Isaac, and Isaac's saying stuff like, I want you to receive God's favor. I want you to have favor with man. I want you to live in abundance. I want you to be a leader. He's speaking words over his life. He's not any of those things at the moment. But Isaac speaks into his potential. And friends, I want you to know that in your family, in your household, the people that you live with, the people that are in your extended family, they are going to disappoint you. Please don't say amen. Your kids will disappoint you. Mom and dad will disappoint you. Uncle Larry will disappoint you. Aunt Jean will disappoint you. I mean, everybody's going to disappoint you. You're going to look at them and go, I can tell you who they are right now. But that's not what you're to speak. You're to speak words of life about who they should become. You're to speak words that call them into destiny. And Isaac does that for Jacob. He says, I'm going to call you into a place of what you are to become, not who you are, not this deceiver. I'm going to call you into a place of who you should be. You see, friends, the world is incredibly cruel. Everybody's got an opinion. We were talking this morning about the GLS. We were talking about how our staff, most of our staff, I think, truly enjoyed the interviewer at the GLS this year. And yet, Pastor Steve was telling me that there were people who says, no, we didn't like her at all. And then one group of people likes Craig Groeschel speaking, and another one, no, I didn't like it. Everybody's got an opinion, and you go outside the church. You don't have to go very far, but you go outside the church walls. It's cruel out there. People are critical, and they say things, and they tear us down. They'll find the little holes in our lives, and they will just pull us down. Your kids, your spouse, your family members, they are exposed constantly to words of death, and they need you to speak words of life to them. Not based upon who they are, but who they will be. I love Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. It says, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Power of life and death. 2 apples. A rotting one and a bright red one. If I said, hey, Pastor Nick, I need you to eat this rotten apple, he'd say no. If I said his job depended on it, and for some crazy reason he actually believed that, and he began to eat of this apple, he'd start to chew on it, and probably within about 10 minutes he would start to feel really sick because it's a rotting apple. But if I offered him the good apple, say, hey, would you eat this? He'd probably say yes, because this was his apple, actually. He'd say, yeah, I'll eat that. This is great. I'll eat it. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. And he would eat it, and he'd feel revived and refreshed. I'm telling you that these apples represent our words. You speak something over your kids. You speak something over your spouse. You speak something over the people in your household. You speak something over your family, and they eat of that negative word, and they start to feel sick. And they start to believe the things that they are hearing, and then the negativities and the poison, and they start to chew on it, and they start to swallow it, and you eat enough poison in your life, and you will start to walk around like a sick individual. I'm telling you, I've walked with some people who are living in defeat because all they've heard their life are negative words, and they've eaten it so much that they are living like they are sick. They are living like they are useless. They are living like they have no value. They are living below what God's standard is. But I've also met some people who have had some people in their life who've eaten of the good fruit, who've eaten of the fruit of life, and people have spoken words of life over them, and they begin to chew on that and to swallow it. A shy 15-year-old kid I was in Oshawa, and my pastor had said, hey, we're going to go to this thing called Firehouse, this leadership conference. I knew all about it. I'd heard it advertised to our youth group many times. I said, well, why do you want me to come? And he said these words that I bit on that day, and he said, because in you I see leadership. He said, I see that you're a leader. I wasn't leading anybody at the time, but he spoke to my potential, and I bit into that apple. And friends, I've been biting into that apple ever since. I've been swallowing it and chewing on it and taking the words of life that Roy Stevenson spoke over me, words of life, and it has shaped who I am. As you eat the fruit that is coming your way, it will either set you on a course towards health or a course towards destruction. And our job as family members is to speak words of life over people. It is to speak life. There are times people do stupid things. Anybody there? Anybody ever do anything stupid? I'm sorry to offend you. I know that for some who don't really like this language, but I'm an idiot sometimes. I am. I am an idiot. I know that I'm stupid. I do stupid things. I know that sometimes. But if I hear those things spoken over me, I start to believe that that's the kind of person I am. I have stupid moments and idiotic moments. But if I hear, hey, Jeff, you're stupid. Hey, Jeff, you're an idiot. Hey, Jeff, and if I start to hear and eat of this negative fruit, I start to believe that's who I am. We need to make sure that the people in our life are hearing good things. Good things. I was thinking about this passage, and I always think about what you're thinking as you're sitting there. And some of you may be thinking, yeah, but Jacob is receiving these good words because Isaac thinks he's talking to Esau. I mean, he's being deceived, and he may not have said these words of blessing to Jacob had he known it was Jacob. He thinks it's Esau. But friends, I want to tell you something. Esau's not the most brilliant individual. The Bible tells us he's out in the woods one day, and he comes in after hunting, and he comes in, and Jacob's been making stew, and he smells it, and he says to him, "Can I have some stew?" Maybe. And then he says these words, "If I don't have that stew, I'm going to die." Anybody got a child who exaggerates? I mean, he's not going to die, but he's extreme. He's an extreme individual. We see a character trait that I'm going to die if I don't have stew. And then Jacob goes, "Okay, well, what if I gave you a bowl for your birthright?" I mean, can you imagine? You say, I come to your house and you got a whole plate of chicken wings. You know I love chicken wings. And I'm like, if I don't have those chicken wings, I'm going to die. And you say to me, "Listen, I'll give you my chicken wings if you give me the deed to your house." Okay, yeah, sounds good. We got 12 there. Okay, it's done. That's what's happening here. Okay, I'll give you my birthright. I mean, he's not the most brilliant individual either. Isaac doesn't know that it's Jacob. He thinks that it's Esau. And Esau is not living under what he speaks either. And yet Isaac knows the power of blessing to speak things that we don't see over people's lives. Matthew chapter 16, Jesus is hanging out with his disciples. He's like, "Hey, boys, I want to ask you a question. What are people saying about me? Like, what's the word on the street? What are people tweeting about me? Like, I just need to know." And they go, "Well, I read a tweet recently that you are Elijah." Another one is like, "Yeah, I saw somebody put on Facebook that they think you're John the Baptist." Another person's like, "Yeah, I've been hanging out with some people, and they think that you're one of the great prophets like Jeremiah or whatever." It's like, I see. Hey, but what's your profile status say? Who do you think I am? And Peter just jumps forward because he's so impulsive, and he says, "I think that you are the Messiah, the Son of God." Impetuous Peter jumps forward and says that. And what does Jesus say? He says, "Simon, from this day, you will be called Peter the Rock." I mean, he changes his name completely. He speaks a word of life over him. You're not going to be Simon anymore. He says, "I'm so impressed with what you have said. I know that you're going to betray me. I know that you're going to swear in front of a girl at a fireplace. I know that you're going to flee and go back fishing. I know that there's going to be times you fail. But Peter, Simon, I want to say something. I want to speak words of life about who you're going to become. You will become the rock. You will become someone solid. It's not someone who sways back and forth based upon popular opinion. You will become a rock." He speaks words of life over him. You see, friends, speaking words of life means that you identify the positive traits in the people around you in your home, and that you see potential. And those are the things that you speak to. Friends, our houses, our homes, our families need to be doused with words of life. We need to bless each other. I know that your spouse may frustrate you at times, but speak life to them. I know your kids will frustrate you at times, but speak life to them. I know, kids, that your moms and dads will frustrate you, but speak life to them. Because where there's life, there's nurturing and flowers grow. And so we see meaningful touch. We see words of life. And the last thing that I think we see is a commitment to completion. Jacob gets his blessing and he takes off. Smart guy. Esau now comes in. He's so excited. He's going to get the blessing. He's got the bowl of stew. "Hey, Dad, I got the bowl of stew." And this man, Isaac, who's near blind, he's like, who's this? "What do you mean, who's this? It's Esau, your son." Oh, no. Oh, no. Dad, tell me what's going on. Why are you so upset?" "Oh, son, I, I think I was deceived. I think it was your brother Jacob. I just gave his blessing away. I just gave it away. And this is what he says in Genesis chapter 27:33. He says, I blessed him. And then he continues on. And indeed, he will be blessed. He will be blessed. Friends, it's such an unusual moment. It actually frustrates me. Because you see, this is the moment where Isaac can make things right. He finds out that the guy he's just given everything to, who he said to, hey, you're going to be the one who executes my estate. You're going to be the one who looks after the sacrificial moments for the family. You're going to be the one who looks after all burial moments. You're going to be the one who represents our family, and you're going to be the kinsman redeemer, because those were the four things he was passing on to him as the leader. Instead of saying, hey, yeah, you can do all those four things, he should have pulled him back in and said, Jacob, you are a deceiver. You ripped me off. You are a liar, and you're a thief, and I'm not giving you any blessings. I'm giving it to your brother Esau, who would do things right. He should have made things right. But he doesn't. You want to know why? He says that he's going to be blessed. I blessed him. He's going to be blessed because Isaac doesn't just speak words of life. He wants to walk with Jacob till he completes who he's meant to be. Who he's meant to be. You see, friends, every person in your family, every person, whether it's your spouse or a relative who's older or younger, every person, God has a plan for them. God has a blessed plan for them. And our job is to walk with them until they complete what they're called to be. We're to walk along, we're to commit to them to make sure that they are willing, they get to the place where God has called them to be. And in this moment, Isaac is saying to Esau, I said he was going to be blessed. I spoke words about who he could become, and I am not going to pull back on those words. He may not be that now, but that's the whole point of blessing, is that I will keep my words true. I will keep my commitment to him true, because I want him to become the person that he is meant to be. That he's meant to be. There's a powerful story in the Bible that Jesus talks about. And Pastor Nick, I want you just to come up here for a second. Story of the prodigal son. And this one day, this father who's very well-to-do, pretty famous in the land, got lots and lots. He has a son that's really well-behaved, and really, he does whatever his dad wants. And then he's got this guy. Right? And this guy just doesn't, he just does whatever he wants. You know, he's always looking for a good time. He's always looking for the latest fashions, wearing Spider-Man running shoes. I mean, he's just always looking for a good time. And he comes to his dad and he says, hey, Dad, I want your inheritance. So say it.
Hey, Dad, I want your inheritance.
Now listen, in this moment when he's asking for his inheritance, there's something significant taking place. Because an inheritance is only passed on to a child when the father dies. And so at this moment, he's saying, Dad, you are as good as dead to me. You're as good as dead to me, Dad. I want your inheritance because I don't even think that you have any one speck of meaning in my life. I want my inheritance. And the dad, you know, if this was me, I would have been like, are you out of your mind? Go to your room. I'm taking away your PS4. That's what I would have said. But what he does is he does the strangest thing is he goes and he gets bags of gold and whatever articles of garments that he needs, and he hands them to his son, his portion. He's like, son, this is your portion. And his son goes off just over here to party land. And he's partying it up. I mean, he is living it up. He's going to the latest parties. He's buying the latest clothes and the latest toys, and he's just having a great time. And everybody wants to be his friend. And then all of a sudden one day he goes to interact something, and it says those terrible words, insufficient funds. And he tries again, he taps again, insufficient funds. And he thinks, man, if I just plug it in, let's try inserting the card this time, and quote, insufficient funds, swipe, insufficient funds. This is crazy. Goes to his bank and realizes he's spent it all. And here he is, and he's far from home, and he's so desperate, and for a few days everything's fine. He simply goes to Costco and just gets samples. I mean, everything seems to be fine. And then one day, And one day, the Costco won't let him in because he doesn't have a membership, and he doesn't know what to do, doesn't know what to eat, and so he starts to eat of the pods that the pigs are eating. And here he is, and this party boy, fancy clothes. He's in the pig pen eating these little pods that the pigs are eating. He's pushing the pigs out of the way so he can get the pods. And he comes to his senses and he thinks, this is ridiculous. Why am I eating these pods? I could go back home to my dad and at least be a servant and get better food than this. I've done wrong, and he starts to return home. Starts to come back. And as his dad sees him coming, before he even gets to the home, his dad throws open the door and starts to run towards him. Meaningful touch. Gives him a hug. And he says, hey, someone go kill one of the calves. Now listen to me for a second. This is important. He's given his portion of the inheritance, right? Everything that remains belongs to the other boy. That's why this story is so powerful. He kills one of the calves that belongs to the other boy. And he says, get him some sandals. And then he does something incredible. He says to him, I want you to wear the finest gown that I have. And he places this fine gown upon him. You look like a superhero. And then he takes a ring. And this is not an engagement thing, Nick. I don't want you weird things in your head. And he takes his hand and he puts this ring on his hand. The robe is a sign of authority. The son does not look like a person of authority. But the father is so committed to him becoming who God's called him to be that he places on him something he doesn't deserve. Oh, friends, this is powerful because this is what Jesus does for you. And this is what you need to do for the people in your home as you give them what they don't deserve. He places on him a robe of authority, and then he puts this ring on his hand, and what the ring represents is sonship. And in fact, this is going to blow you away. What he's actually doing is he says, you are my son, and you now have an equal portion of the inheritance. Oh, are you catching this? He has wasted his half, and he deserves nothing. But everything belongs to the father because he's not dead. So while the other son's thinking it's all his, the father's thinking it still belongs to me. And so I want to give him back a portion. And he places the ring on his hand and he says, you are still my son. And I want you to have a portion of the inheritance. Because son, no matter how you've lived, no matter what you've done, no matter how far you've gone, I'm walking with you till you become who God's called you to be. And you are my son and you are a leader in my household. Thanks, Pastor Nick. Friends, that's the picture. Just sit down. It's the picture that God wants you to see of your life because you don't deserve the robe, you don't deserve the ring, and you don't deserve the inheritance, but he stepped into your life no matter how far you've been gone, no matter how deep you've been in sin, no matter how dirty you've gotten, he steps into your life and gives you what you don't deserve. And what he says to you is, I want you to walk with people in your life, people in your home and in your family, and I want you to walk with them till they complete who they're supposed to become. Commit yourself to them. And let them become the people that God's called them to be. Because there's going to be days that your spouse doesn't look like who God's called them to be. There's going to be days that your kids don't look like who God's called them to be. There's going to be days that your parents don't look like who God's called them to be. But your job is to walk with them to completion. We speak words of, where did my Bible go? Right here. We speak words of life, meaningful touch, and a commitment to completion. I want you to look at one last verse as we conclude. Pastor Steve, would you come back? Verse 38. Do we have that on the screen? Esau is standing there before his dad, and he says this. Esau said to his father, do you have only one blessing? My father, bless me too. My father. Then Esau wept aloud. Dad, do you only have one blessing? Dad, can you only speak words of life into one child? Dad, can you only give a meaningful touch to one child? Dad, can you please, do you only have enough commitment for one child that you'll see him to completion? Please, Dad, just bless me. What Esau's doing in this moment is he's saying, Dad, my soil is drying up. My soil is drying up. And he begins to weep, and it's a weeping of humility and anguish of soul. And he's saying, Dad, I need something for my life, and it comes from you. I just need a drop, Dad, just a drop before my soil sucks the life out of me. Dad, I just need a drop. I just need you to speak one word. Is there one blessing, Dad? Just one drop. Dad, is there just one meaningful touch? Just one drop. Dad, is there just one distance you'll walk with me so that you'd see me complete who God's called me to be? Just one drop. The people in your life are just looking for one drop. Just one drop. Just one drop. Just one drop. Would you stand? Everybody stand, please. We're almost done. We're not going to have this big altar moment because it's really not in here that needs to happen. It's in your home. It's in your living room. It's in your car ride. It's as you're walking the streets. That your spouse or your kids or your parent or that aunt or that uncle or that cousin or that nephew, they just need you to place your hand on them and say, hey, I care about you. Just a drop. They need you to wrap your arms around them and say, hey, I love you. Just a drop, a meaningful touch. They need to hear the words of life that convey who they are, the positive traits, and they need to hear the words of life about who they will become. May God give you His favor. May God give you abundance. May you be a leader. May you have favor with humanity. The words that were spoken over Jacob, and speak words of life, just a drop. And there would be something like the prodigal son, that he would receive from his dad, and you would give it the robe and the ring that is not deserved when they trip up, when they fail, when they fall, where they grow tired, where they miss the mark, but they come running back to you, and you'd say, I'm here to walk with you until you become who God's called you to be. I'm not writing you off. And when that happens, friends, and you pour those drops of water into the people in your life, you will see something grow into beauty. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes? I'm going to ask the prayer team to come right now. Very quickly, I want to close the service so that you can go and practice what we just preached. In just a moment, you may be in the service and you may need prayer for a specific situation in your life, whatever it may be, physical, emotional, marital, finance, whatever needs you have. You just need someone to pray with you. I'd encourage you just to slip out or come at the end of the service to one of the people at the front. They'll pray for you. But with your heads bowed and your eyes closed, I want to ask this question. You're here today and you feel like that prodigal son so far away. Yeah, I want to tell you, you don't deserve the robe, you don't deserve the ring. But I want to tell you something else, I don't deserve it either. But my Father is so amazing. He's so committed to me that He will walk with me to completion. And He wants so far for where you would be that He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to die in your spot. And He wants to bring you into the household. And He wants to have a meal with you. And He wants to get close to you. He wants to have a relationship with you. And He wants to help you become who you're called to be. He wants you to be brought into His kingdom. You'd say, Pastor, I've never given my life to Jesus. I've been so far from Him. But today I want to accept Him as my King, as my Savior. I want to give Him my life. If that's you, just raise your hand. Just wave at me. You've never done that before, but you just want to give your life to Jesus this morning. Is there anybody here? Just wave your hand at me. Just wave it at me. Don't want to miss anybody. All right. If you didn't raise your hand, but you feel a little tug in your heart, I'd encourage you to come to the front after I close. Once again, if you need prayer this morning for any need, I'd encourage you just to come to the front and let one of the people in the prayer team pray for you. The church, as we conclude this service, let us leave this place determined to let the geranium grow, to pour water into people's lives, And so, Jesus, as we close this service, I'm asking that you would help us to provide the meaningful touch, something that is tangible, that expresses what's in our heart. I pray that we would speak words of life over people, identifying the positive traits and the potential of an individual breathing life. And God, I pray that we would be like the father of the prodigal son, who would walk with one another until we become who God has called us to be. Let us make blessed homes, blessed families, blessed lives. Let us bless wherever we go. I pray your hand would be upon every person now. In Jesus' name, amen.